my skin is not my own. So the Frank Herbert Dune miniseries on the SciFi channel has a sequel called Children of Dune. And funny thing is that looking at Children of Dune, I think it's a better show than the original sci-fi miniseries, but at the same time too, it's not perfect. I will say overall though, it's an improvement on the original series because, I mean, one, it has more budget, so like it's actually like watchable. Two, the direction is much better, so the storytelling flows a lot more, and overall the performances aren't super over the top, and overall there is a overall better general creative direction with the storytelling. And honestly, I do find it to be a much more enjoyable watch than the first series, because the first series, whilst overall it's a good adaptation of Dune, at the same time too, it's pretty hard to get through. Now, the interesting thing about the Children of Dune miniseries is that it technically tells both Dune Messiah and Children of Dune as one story. Though thinking about it, I feel like my review for this show is going to be in two halves, because the first half is just going to focus on episode 1 because it adapts Dune Messiah, and the second half will be on Children of Dune. And funnily enough, I have more things to say about the Dune Messiah adaptation than I do Children of Dune. I mean, to be fair too, I don't love Children of Dune the book. Like, I did a review for Children of Dune a while ago, and even still, it's like that book, whilst I like the overall plot, the overall details of the story aren't sticking with me. But before we get into the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, follow me on social media, specifically Instagram and TikTok. They're down in the description down below. Check out my latest short film, The Shining Optimism of VF Manar. Before we get into the video, I just want to quickly plug my latest short film, The Shining Optimism of E.F. Manar. Keep the spark alive. As dreamer and optimist E.F. Manar must find a way to keep his hopes and passions alive in a cynical world. Inspired by Wonka and The Greatest Showman, a lot of time, effort, love, and passion was put into this project, so I would really appreciate it if you guys could give it a watch. The film is linked down below in the description, and it's also on the homepage of my YouTube channel. I hope you guys watch it and really enjoy it. Anyways, back to the video. And without further ado, let's get into the Children of Dune miniseries. So, getting into the first episode of the miniseries, which adapts Dune Messiah. Overall, I'd say that the show adapts Dune Messiah enough. Like, the episode covers Dune Messiah in about an hour and 20 minutes, and to be fair, it does it well enough. Like, plot-wise, it's Dune Messiah, but I feel like for me, as an adaptation of Dune Messiah, it misses a lot of the depth and overall nuance that that story has. And I think this is something I've realised about both of the sci-fi miniseries with Dune, because in my review for the first one I said, yeah, it's a faithful enough adaptation. However, I feel like after watching both of the series back to back, there's something missing, and I feel like it's either the storytelling itself or it's the overall central idea of Dune. It doesn't really have the Dune spirit. Maybe both of the series aren't cinematic enough, but I also feel like there's a melancholy with the Paul Atreides story that the shows, both of them, don't really capture. And when you compare it to Mon Ami Denis Villeneuve's work, in Dune Part 2 specifically, you can see it. I feel like when his third Dune film comes out and he adapts Dune Messiah, and you see the overall arc of Paul Atreides, you're gonna feel it a lot more than you do with, say, Alec Newman as Paul Atreides.
Lead them to paradise.
He said I got you.
Because this time around, when Alec Newman plays Paul Atreides, specifically Emperor Paul Atreides, he's more age appropriate and overall he fits the role a lot better. I think he does a far better job as adult Paul Atreides than he does as young Paul Atreides.
Truth is in the streets still, not in this parade of sycophants who flutter around this palace with their meaningless statistics.
However, my issue with the show's interpretation of Paul Atreides is they don't really make him evil. Like, the whole point of Paul Atreides is that he becomes Space Hitler, but like, I don't really feel that from him. Like, the show does talk about Muad'Dib's jihad and the Fremen going on the Galactic Crusades and killing billions of people and such, but I didn't get the feeling of going, oh, that's what Paul's become. Like, because that's the feeling I got when reading the books. It's like, you read Dune 1, and you can kind of see the hints of it, but then, you know, you don't really know the full story. You're just thinking it's a guy going out for revenge. And then you read Dune Messiah, and it puts everything into context, and then you go back to Dune, and you go, oh, Paul Atreides is not a good person, but at the same time too, he was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, whether or not Paul Atreides becoming Space Hitler is a good or a bad thing in terms of the universal consequences, that's a different story. But in terms of the show conveying the idea that Muad'Dib becomes intergalactic Space Hitler, I didn't feel it. And I think a lot of that comes down to them omitting certain scenes from the book that are really like hammering home the point that Paul Atreides is not a good person. Like, you can feel sorry for Paul Atreides, because I do. When I read the book, I wouldn't say relate to him, but at the same time too, I understand where he's coming from. I mean, I do and I don't. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I've been with him since he was a 15-year-old boy on Arrakis, and then him, you know, growing into the figure of Muad'Dib, and you see his internal monologue of going, I don't want to do this, I don't want to take over the firmament because it will unleash war, but at the same time too, if I don't, I'll die. But at the same time too, even if I do die, the wars are going to happen anyway. But there are two scenes in Dune Messiah that the show omits, and I really wish they didn't, because again, it shows perspective on Paul Atreides. Namely, the first scene being the one between him and Irulan, where Irulan's all like, oh, I must breathe the Atreides air, and then Paul's like, no, I'm not touching you. The only person I'm ever going to touch is Chani. And then Irulan's like, fine, then I'll take a lover. And then Paul's like, okay, but you're not to have a child, because if you do, that child will not know my warmth as a father, it will not know my household. It will basically be like a stray dog, showing a really scummy side to Paul Atreides. And at the same time too, you kind of go, what is Irulan supposed to do? Because you learn this at the end of Dune Messiah, that she's in love with Paul Atreides, and just, it's a really deep and complex scene. And also too, it shows that Paul Atreides is like a really bad person. Like, again, you can relate to this character because you've seen his journey throughout both of the books, but at the same time too, you look at these scenes and you go, this guy's a horrible person. And that's further cemented in the second scene that the show omits, and I really wish they included it, which is the scene between Paul, Edric, and Stilgar, where Paul essentially compares himself to Genghis Khan and Hitler. Like, when I was on holiday recently, I was rereading Dune Messiah, and I got to that scene again, and I was like, oh god, yeah, this scene is so messed up. Because if I'm recalling the scene properly, it's a scene between Paul, Stilgar, and Edric the whole time is talking to Paul, but is making a lot of really snide remarks. And then Stilgar kind of gets a bit, you know, frustrated, and it's just like, Muad'Dib, you're gonna let him talk to you like that? And Paul's just like, yeah, no, don't worry still, I'm top dog. Bring in the film projector, I want to show Edric something. And then Paul and Edric are talking, and Paul basically goes, right, boom, here's my dick, I am Emperor Paul Muad'Dib Atreides. All these people that I've killed, they did it in my name. I am better than the emperors of, you know, the old earth, like Hitler and Genghis Khan. And Stilgar's just like, oh my god, Muad'Dib, this is a bit mad. And Paul's just like, yeah, you know who I am. The whole scene in the book is incredible, and it needs to be in Denis Villeneuve's Dune Messiah adaptation, because if it's not, he's failed. Like, that's literally the whole point of Paul's story. Because Paul Atreides could have just, you know, accepted Edric's snide remarks and been like, okay, yeah, smile pleasantly, let it all kind of like slide under the rug. No, Paul literally just went, no, I am the top dog. This is how big I am. I'm only allowing you to talk to me like that just because, you know, I'm being courteous. But at the end of the day, I'm an evil person. So, you know, stay in your place. And the fact that the sci-fi miniseries version of Dune Messiah doesn't do that, it frustrates me a bit. And again, Denis mon ami, I love you, but you have to include the scene in Dune Messiah, because if you don't, what are you doing? Because that's what I mean. It's like the omission of those two scenes. Like, whilst the show's adaptation of Dune Messiah is fine enough, there are some weird things here and there, like Alia doing the training scene. But the training scene in the show is weird though, because Alia beats the machine fully clothed, and then she just strips naked, and then Paul walks in, and it's like, oh, that's weird. Why did the show do it like that? Either have her be naked or don't have her be naked. Like, why do both? That being said though, the actress Danielle Amalvio, who portrays the older version of Alia, is really good. I liked her a lot. One thing I will say though, when this is a nitpick, is that she's a Greek actress and she still keeps her Greek accent, but none of the Atreides family, especially Paul and Lady Jessica, have a Greek accent, so it's a bit strange. Like, her performance overall is great, don't get me wrong. It's just weird that she still keeps her Greek accent, but then, like, she doesn't fit in with the rest of the Atreides family. Production-wise, it is a step up from the original series, but then there are certain things that just look off. Like, one, they kind of just forget the idea of still suits. Like, no one in at least episode 1 is wearing a still suit. They're all just wearing, you know, medieval tunics and stuff, and it's a bit odd. And also, there are certain effects like the stone burner sequence, which is like, I don't know, I didn't feel the impact of Paul losing his eyes, and I think it's mainly because, you know, they just gave Alec Newman black contact lenses, which, on the one hand, it is kind of cool, but on the other hand, it's like, Paul Atreides is supposed to be blind. His eye sockets are supposed to have been, you know, completely burnt. They're meant to be hollow. It's meant to be a creepy looking image, and I don't know, the effect just doesn't work for me, because it just looks like he's wearing black contact lenses. Like, his eyelids are still there, and just, I don't feel like he's blind. You kind of forget that he's blind half the time. Especially when you get to Children of Dune, because there are certain scenes where I'm like, oh yeah, he's blind. I completely forgot. And again, you get to the end of the episode and Paul Atreides is going off into the desert to die because that's the Fremen thing and such, but I didn't feel it. Because again, the ending to Dune Messiah is depressing and melancholic. I didn't get that feeling. The ending in many ways to me felt quite rushed. Like, as an adaptation of Dune Messiah for an hour and 20 minutes, it's a thumbs up. I go, yeah, that is Dune Messiah. I don't look at it and go, what the hell was that? But at the same time too, I look at it and I go, it's a bit of a hollow version of Dune Messiah. Like, on the surface, it's, the plot points to Dune Messiah. But then, you look at the inside, there is no, real meat to the story. I don't feel like it adapted the true core and essence of Dune Messiah. Now, the show's interpretation of Children of Dune, to me, was fine, but at the same time too, I don't love Children of Dune as a story. Like, I think plot-wise, I like Children of Dune, but that book to me was really quite long for what it wanted to be, because essentially that story is just House Carino wants to overthrow House Atreides, so they do some weird stuff, Ali is going insane, and then Leto and Ganima get, like, attacked by the Carinos, and then, Leto, they survive this like panther attack or something, and Leto's alive, and then Ganima thinks that he's dead but he's not dead, and then Leto goes off into the desert to find the preacher, and the preacher's Paul Atreides, and then Alia as regent is gonna marry Ganima to the Carino heir, and there's like treachery and plotting because like Alia's like cheating on Duncan with one of the Carino manservants or something. Leto gets infected by one of these like worm husks and he's slowly turning into a worm man, and then like he comes back at the end and like defeats Alia. Alia's dealing with mummy issues because she felt like Lady Jessica abandoned her and Lady Jessica returned to Arrakis. As an abomination, Alia is being possessed by the Baron Harkonnen and such, and then, Alia commits suicide to kill off the Baron, and then by the end, Leto resumes his role as ruler of Arrakis, and then becomes like the God Emperor and such. And overall, the show adapts Children of Dune fine enough, but again, it doesn't make it super compelling for me. I will say though, the absolute powerhouse of this season was James McAvoy as Leto II, because he was like pitch perfect casting. Like, James McAvoy is one of those actors that you kind of forget is great until you watch them in something and you're just like, wait, no, they're amazing. Like, he's so good in this show. He's just walking around like, I, Leto Atreides, Leto II, and I'm like, God damn, he's so good.
To rid humanity of the perversions done in Muad'Dib's name, and to save it from the abomination known as Alia.
Like, this is baby James McAvoy. He's not Professor X yet. He hasn't even played Mr. Tumnus yet. And honestly, he is like pitch perfect casting as Leto. Like, yes, Leto in the book is meant to be like a child. He's meant to be like 8, 9, 10 or something. The show aging them up, I don't really mind, because again, we get James McAvoy and he's incredible.
I will not fear. Fear is the mind killer. I will face my fear. I will let it pass through me.
Daniela Amavia as Alia Atreides again is really good, and I do think overall her performance is quite strong throughout the show. Like, her interpretation of Alia being possessed by the Baron Harkonnen is done quite well in the show. And if I remember correctly, the show changes how she dies, because in the book Alia throws herself off a balcony, but in the show she just stabs herself. There's a couple of recasts in this series. We've got Steven Berkoff, who is the new Stilgar. I noticed that straight away, and like, he does a good job. Like, his performance isn't terrible, but I don't know, he didn't really scream Stilgar to me. They also recast the Lady Jessica, who is now Alice Krieg, and in many ways I actually preferred her interpretation to the one in the original Dune series. Like, the original actor was good, but Alice Krieg to me was just a much stronger version of Jessica. I looked at her and I was like, yeah, no, that's the Lady Jessica. And Alec Newman returning as Paul Atreides is very good. Again, I said before, he plays a much better adult Paul Atreides than he does the young Paul Atreides. Now, when it comes to the show's interpretation of the Preacher, it tries to do the thing from the book, where in the book, you don't know it's Paul Atreides until Leto meets him, and then you discover that the Preacher is Paul Atreides. And the show tries to do that, however, it's kind of hard for the show to do because, compared to a book where you can kind of just like say certain things and describe certain things in certain ways and keep the mystery of who the Preacher is. Visually, Alec Newman still looks like Alec Newman, except for now he just has long hair and a couple of fake wrinkles. So like, the show tries to do the thing from the book where you don't know the Preacher is Paul Atreides, but at the same time too, like, you as the audience watching it just goes, that's Paul Atreides. And I don't know how you would adapt that properly in live action, because again, Denis Villeneuve is only going to do Dune Messiah, and then he said he's open to leaving the story open for others, to continue the franchise. And if they were to ever adapt Children of Dune into a film, I don't know how you do the whole preacher thing and still keep the mystery and reveal that Paul Atreides is the preacher. Because this show tried to do it, but it didn't work. And I don't know if it's a budget thing or if it's like a direction thing, but just, it falls flat. Like, I respect the attempt, but at the same time too, the attempt didn't work. Susan Sarandon's also in this. She plays Princess when Isia. I don't remember the name. She's like Irulan's cousin or sister or something. I think it's cousin. Oh, also story-wise, they kind of like neglect the whole like Leto and Ganima incest kind of thing, because there's that scene in the Children of Dune book where Leto and Ganima, they are possessed by the spirits of Paul and Chani, and they're having like a conversation as Paul and Chani, but then also their brother and sister, and it's just, it's weird. And yeah, overall, it's a pretty decent adaptation of Children of Dune. I mean, minus some of the dodgy visual effects, because they're bad. I mean, they're not as bad as they were in the original miniseries, but again, this show has a bit more budget. But even too, the direction is better than the original show. Like, watching Children of Dune, I was like, oh, there's a different director behind this, and they're actually pretty good. Like, this show throughout was quite watchable, but some of the direction in that original show is just really bad, and it makes that entire miniseries really hard to watch. So the show ends off with Leto II running off at super speed into the desert with a pretty questionable visual effect, but even still. The show is setting up an adaptation for God Emperor of Dune on the SciFi channel, but it didn't come to fruition because of budget or something. Now, I've not read God Emperor of Dune, and I tried to watch Quinn's Ideas video on God Emperor of Dune, and I won't lie, that story is weird, and I don't know how the hell you adapt that, because what? But if the SciFi channel were to have made a God Emperor of Dune miniseries, I would say yeah, I would have watched it, because overall, this show itself was good. I wouldn't call it great, but it was good enough. But those are my thoughts on the sci-fi miniseries of Children of Dune. What did you guys think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Specifically, the show's interpretation of Dune Messiah and Children of Dune. Do you feel the same about me, to where, like, especially with Dune Messiah, they did it well enough, but they missed the point? Again, let's discuss it in the comments down below. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on social media, all the good stuff. Until we meet again, I'll see you guys next time.